and continues for the American University of Bionic Science and Technology in the US. Now, I invite architect Kritika Karpaya ma'am to share rich experiences in traditional Indian architecture of Sthapatya Veda, well known as Vastu Shastra. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. This platform is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Architect Shantini and Architect Vijayashree for the nice introduction. I'm glad to be a speaker for this hashtag 2020 first virtual webinar series conducted by SRM Seed. I thank SRM Management, Vice Principal Admin Architect Ramesh Madhivanan, HOD Professor Architect Ashok Kumar, and the students and coordinators who have made this event, who are organizing this event in a successful way. So I'd like to start my presentation. Exploring the ancient Indian architecture of Sthapatya Veda. This is the title that I've chosen to talk about today, which is a very deep subject, and that cannot be covered in 35 minutes time that has been given to me. So I'll have to rush through it very quickly. So just now, Architect Vijayashree had mentioned about Vastu Shastra and Sthapatya Veda, and she said that it is well known as Vastu Shastra. But firstly, I would like to try to bring out the difference between these two. Are they one and the same, or is there any difference? Why would a same subject have two different names? So Vastu Shastra is a treatise on technological or the practical application aspect of creating a built form. So it basically deals with the technological aspect. For example, the Shastra is classified into 4 different classifications. Bhumi Vastu, which deals with the site selection, the site contours, shape of the site, soil conditions, all the physical properties of the site comes under Bhumi Vastu. Prasada Vastu deals with the designing of buildings and temple structures based on grammar or principle, certain rules that are laid out in the Shastra. Yana Vastu is the design of vehicles, temple cars, and any transportable transportation vehicles that were used in the ancient times. For example, the Pushpaka Vimana that was used by Ravana in Ramayana was designed using this Yana Vastu Shastra. And Sayana Vastu is the design of furnitures. The ancient times, they had the Simhasana for the royal kings that were designed based on certain sacred measurements. So for furnitures also, measurements were very important. And the technological aspect of designing all these comes under the treatise called Vastu Shastra. The aim of Vastu Shastra is to bring physical, mental, spiritual well-being to human race. So this is a verse from Brihad Samhita by Varahamihira. Vastu Shastram Pravakshyami Lokanam Hitakamyaya. So let's see what is Sthapatya Veda. Sthapatya Veda is an extensive treatise on the science and technology part of creating a built form. So we know that even today, without science or without the theory part, the practical knowledge cannot be applied successfully. So for this ancient knowledge, there were 2 parts, science and technology part. And the science was given more importance in the earlier days, because based on the science only, the practical part was applied. But today, in the current world, what happens is we have taken up the practical, the technology aspect of the Shastra alone, and we totally forgot about the scientific theory. So we just blindly follow things. Like, for example, everyone knows that a Vastu building will be planned on a 9x9 grid. There is a Vastu Purusha Mandala. There is a Brahmastan, about the 5 elements, about the spatial organization. All these are very commonly known by everyone today, because we have books available for even 50 rupees or 100 rupees on the platforms, which are sold at very cheap rate. So the subject matter of this knowledge has been brought down to such a low level without the science part. So if the people really understand the depth of the scientific theory behind the Shastra, then that brings the real meaning of this application part also. So a few pointers of the science part of this Veda has been listed here. I cannot go very deep into each of the individual points here because it won't be enough time for me to complete each and every one. But here, just let me tell that Vastu and Vastu, there are two different terms. Many of you would have heard some people saying it as Vastu Shastra, some call it as Vastu Shastra. What is the difference? So Vastu means energy and Vastu is the matter. So every form has an embodied energy within it. So that is the subtle aspect and gross aspect of any given form. So what is about the energy and matter? If we say in physical terms, there is fire. So you can see the fire, but you cannot see the heat within it unless you touch it. So that is the subtle aspect of a fire. Similarly, every built form also has a subtle energy level within it. And this part of the Veda deals with the explanation of the energy aspect of built forms. Next, we come to the manifestation of Earth from space. How is Earth formed from space? So in the presence of Panchabhuta, along with the rhythmic time pattern and Om light and Om sound, all these combined together, the 8 elements combined together, help in the process of creation of Earth. So they say there's a sloka which says Akashat Vayur Agnihi Agnir Apaha Abdihi Prithvi. So that is the sequence in which the manifestation of Earth has occurred. And then we have this concept of time and space, which is a very interesting concept. And like, for example, how time is equal to space. We say that there is an inner space within every being. And this inner space visualizes certain things. Like, for example, you tell an object like elephant, and immediately the image of an elephant appears within yourself. How does it happen? Have you ever thought of it? You tell Amma, you tell Appa, or you tell anything, apple, immediately you are able to visualize the object within yourself. What is the phenomena that is happening within? That is what our Veda speaks of in this theory of time and space. Time is equal to space. Then we have expression of our thought waves. So thought waves are very important for a creative person, especially an architect. So whatever we feel within ourselves, we think within ourselves, those thought waves are being expressed into the external world in the form of visual and oral forms. So visual forms, for example, dance, literature, architecture, sculpture, all these comes under visual forms of expressions, while poetry and music comes under the oral forms. And next aspect is a square. We all know that square is a basic form. It is a primal shape which is used for designing Vastu buildings. Why is square used? Vastu Purushaha Chaturashra Samstaha. So that is a sloka that defines that the energy, embodied energy, resides within a square. Why is it a square? So the answers for all these questions can be found in Sthapatya Veda. Place of its origin. So we all know Sthapatya Veda, we talk about Vastu Shastra, but we never know where it originated. We know that it is from India. The entire world knows that India is the origin for such a great heritage and culture, and it has a specific identity, everything. But the actual place of origin was Kumarikandam, which is also called as Jambudvipa or Navalan Diva. Navalan means jamun, Navalam Param. That's a fruit in India, which is especially grown in this landmass. So thereby it gets the name. And if you would have seen the priests who do the homas or any ceremonies, they start with this Jambudvipe, Bharadakhande, Bharadavamche. This verse goes on. So this is the beginning of Tamil culture. So this landmass that you see here is an assumption of the Kumarikandam. Many of them are still having contradictory thoughts about this landmass, whether it existed or how could such a landmass be gone in just a few years after deluge and things. There are enough researches happening, but this recent research by Professor S.M. Ramaswamy from Department of Remote Sensing, Bharathidasan University, he has conducted underwater mapping and found the landmass, which was not as large as the ones that you saw in the earlier slides. He presented a lecture at the Tamil conference at Chicago held in February 2020 recently. And this is the result that he has come up with. The existence of rivers, Bahuruli, Kumari, and Vaigai, and the existence of the capitals, the landmass. Here you can see the landmass, which is assumed to be the mountainous region, and the gorges, which were assumed to be the river beds. So we all know about the Sangam era. Sangam era is it dates around 10,000 to 15,000 years before present. And the then kingdom was Pandya kingdom. The entire landmass was ruled by Pandyas. So we have these three stages of Sangam era. And every time the deluge happened, the capital of the kingdom was shifted from one place to another. So the first capital was Tenmadurai. And after the first deluge, it was shifted to Kapatapuram. And after the second deluge, it was shifted to Manalur, which is very close to Madurai. So after the third deluge, the capital became Madurai, which is the current Madurai that we have today. So this is the overall mapping that is recently discovered by Professor S.M. Ramaswamy. So this, why am I talking so much about all this deluge and the Sangam era is because Tamil culture was at its peak in this landmass. Tamil language had flourished. And we had the Mudal Sangam, Idai Sangam, and Kadai Sangam, which are the three Sangams, which is nothing but the assembly of Tamil poets who came here to showcase their talents. And in spite of three deluges which had happened over several thousands of years, the Tamil culture remained to flourish. The Panchamarabu, which we call as the 5 art forms of Tamil culture, Iyal, Isai, Natam, Sirpam, and Kattidam, these flourished in this landmass despite of all the deluges. And there was a neat classification of the Tamil land forms. There were 5 different types of lands: Kurinji, Mullai, Marudam, Neidal, and Palai. So such a rich cultural background existed in this landmass, and this is the place of origin for this ancient wisdom of Sthapati Veda. So now, who is the author of this Sthapati Veda? You would have heard of the word Mayamatam. Mayamatam is a text that is available in today's context. We have this as the Bible for Indian architecture. So Brahma Rishi Mayan was a great scientist, poet, and Tamil scholar. He had proficiency in Tamil and Prakrit. He belonged to this Kumari continent. He was born in a Tamil, in a family of traditional carpenters. Mayan was the father of Mandodari, who was married to King Ravana. And Nilanthira Tiruvir Pandyan, a Pandya king who ruled 49 kingdoms, was the ruler who supported Mayan and his creations. Mayan had designed the towns, palaces, temples, royal seal ornaments, etc. for the entire kingdom at Kapatapuram in south and Dwaraka in north. He had 12 students who were assigned different subjects of research, and they were supposed to record them. And during the first Tamil Sangam meet organized by Nilanthira Tiruvir Pandyan at Tenmadurai, Mayan was one of the scholars who had displayed his works in various fields apart from sculpture and architecture. So he was introduced by Veda Vyasa in several of his texts, Srimad Bhagavatam, and it was mentioned that he carried the knowledge from south to north, east, and west part of India. Later on, he settled in the banks of River Saraswati and carved a territory called Brahmavarta, where he preached Stapati Veda. So a person who was born in this Tamil land took up this knowledge to various parts of India and spread this ancient knowledge during those days. So all this information about Mayan, the author, was taken from Vaisampayanam, a book that was written on Mayan's biography by Vaisampayana, who was a student of Vedavyasa. So here you can see the 12 noted students of Mayan and how the classification of various subjects were given to the 12 students. And each of the students had to do a research on different topics. And here you can see the name of Mayan, which is underlined in red. And there are certain evidences that show that the Mayan of this land, of the Kumari continent, and the Mayan of Mexico, the works of these two people are quite similar. And those evidences are really peculiar. Like you can find the statue of Hanuman in Mayan civilization, which is really astonishing. So further researches are being carried out in this area. References of Mayan can be seen from Vaisampayanam, the book that I have already told you, written by Rishi Vaisampayana. One of the verses goes like, temples were established in every township for the prosperity of mankind, which emerged as a result of the efforts of the erudite Mayan and the scholars who sat under the banyan tree, formulating the guidelines in order to sustain this exceptional art and architecture. So it has been mentioned that Mayan was a great scholar, and he had a bunch of students who were given this knowledge, and they were taking written guidelines from him. Mayan, the name of Mayan has been referred in, you can find the reference of Mayan from Ramayana 23 times. Here I have just posted two of them, and I'm going to read only one. The mansion of the Maya, which that Danava himself built, and that mountain Mainaka is to be searched out, inclusive of its crests, grades, and caves. This verse was mentioned to the Vanaras who went in search of Sita Devi, and they were introduced about Mayan, as shown here. There is reference of Mayan from Mahabharata 61 times. So that is a long introduction. Introducing himself as a Vishwakarma, the great poet of Danavas, Mayan says in Mahabharata, I have built a number of buildings for Danavas before. In thousands I have built houses, and it goes on. So now you can ask me a question. How is it that a person can be found both in Ramayana and Mahabharata? How is it possible? Because you all know about the 4 yugas, and Ramayana occurs in Krita Yuga, while Treta Yuga, while Mahabharata occurs during the Dwapara Yuga. So how is it that the same person can be found in 2 yugas, which span a very huge number of years? Supreme beings or Brahma Rishis, like Mayan is considered to be a Brahma Rishi because he had attained the Brahma Jnanam, or the knowledge from the Brahma directly. So these people, the supreme beings, like Mayan, had the ability to reincarnate at any period of time at their own will. It was because of this that he would have been reborn again and carried over this knowledge. Mayan's contributions, there were nearly 12 books that Mayan had contributed. So various treatises on painting, iconometry, architecture, building, site selection, astrophysics, divine dance, on herbs, mathematics, shipbuilding, space shipbuilding, science, and music. So these were the 12 important works of Mayan, and most of them are available. But the major contributions of Mayan are Pranavvedam, Aintiram, Mayagama, and Surya Siddhanta, of which Pranavveda is very important because Vedavyas in Srimad Bhagavatam has referred to a verse that Eka Eva Pura Vedo Pranava Sarva Vangmayaha, meaning in the remote past there existed only one Veda which was called Pranavveda, and this Pranavveda is written in Tamil by Mayan. There are other 22 Vastu texts recorded by Manasara. Who is Manasara? Manasara is a student of Mayan. And you know that the earlier days, the knowledge was imparted as an oral tradition and it was passed on from one generation to the next. So Manasara was one of the students, and he has recorded that there were 32 texts in this field of knowledge. And among them, the underlined ones are currently available, but the rest are, they have been destroyed. It is said that the Nalanda University and Takshashila University had copies of these, but they were destroyed during the Khilji dynasty in the around the 12th, 11th century. So here you see another list of 10 books, Vastu texts written from the northern part of India. So what you can see is all the texts from north or south had common concepts and grammar of design. The regional variations were found only in the external features. The building materials and local traditions influenced the designs. Now, who is a Vishwakarma? So we know the land of origin, we know who had created the Shastra, but who is this Vishwakarma? Some people say Vishwakarma are the architect of the Devas, and Mayasura is the architect of Asuras. So what is all this? See, Asura means powerful or a mighty person. So it is like you are having the valor and you have a supreme power. That is what Asura means. So this Vishwakarma, as you see here, with the five heads. Normally, people think that Vastu Shastra or Stapati Veda is religious. It is not so. It is more scientific. Whatever we see as the deities in Hindu religion, we have number of gods and goddesses. Why should we have so many gods and goddesses? Each deity is an energy form, and this energy form is given a visual representation. They are visual representation of energy forms. So if you are going to tell these energy forms verbally or literally in literature, people are not going to understand. But when you give a form to it, that is when people try to understand the concept. So five-headed Vishwakarma doesn't mean that Vishwakarma God has 5 heads. It is only that the 5 classification under which the creation has been subdivided is represented in the form of 5 heads. Similarly, for Ravana, they say that Ravana was had 10 heads. So it's not that he literally had 10 heads. It is the power of 10 people, the qualities of 10 people that he had within himself. So here you can see the classification of this creative working class into 5 parts: Manu, Maya, Tvashta, Shilpi, and Vishwagya. Manu was a blacksmith, Maya carpenter, Tvashta coppersmith, Shilpi sculptor, and Vishwagyan was a goldsmith. So all these rishi names, the descendants of these rishis came under the different subdivisions. Who is a Stapati? So we are all architects. Today we call ourselves as architect. But according to Mayan, there is a very good definition of who a Stapati has to be. In Mayamata, Stapati is well versed in all sciences and qualified and entitled to establish buildings of all types. According to Manasara, he who is empowered or entitled to do design and construction is Stapati. He also says that Stapati is one who is qualified to be a teacher in the subject of construction of edifices. In Vastu Sutropanishad, you can find that Vritajnanam Rekajnanam cha yaha janati saha stapakaha. The meaning of it is, Vrita means circle and Reka means line. The peripheral meaning of this verse is that he is a Stapati who has knowledge of circles and lines. But a deeper understanding of this verse is that circle represents cycle of time and line represents energy grids on Vastu Purusha Mandala. So a person who has knowledge of time and space can only be an architect. Stapati's team. So earlier days, we had a very small team under Sthapatis. They were called Sutragrahi, Takshaka, and Vardaki. So just with such a small number of people under an architect, all these marvelous structures, the temples and the monuments were constructed in the earlier days. So Sutragrihi is either his son or his disciple. He always follows the directions and instruction of the Sthapati. He is skilled in all arts. He is an expert in Shastric measures and instruments. He is an expert marker and well experienced in application of the length, breadth, and depth. A Takshaka is one who works on stone, wood, and brick. So he's a person who really works on the material. He is an experienced masonry worker, and he's virtuous and capable of understanding his role. And a Vardaki is an expert in jointing works. So he is a person who will assemble the chiseled stoneworks or wooden blocks. So the assembling part was considered very important. And Vardaki is a person who was doing that role. So all the three should be active, skillful, pure, strong, and compassionate, and they all followed their master's instructions. So what was the measurement system used by the Shilpis? Does anyone, I know that it is very difficult for us to interact. If it were in a live class, I would be very happy to hear answers from you all. But see, Indian architecture had our original measurement system. We took measurements from the British and the metric system, but they were all measurements that were taken from random entities. For example, the British measurement system starts with furlong. Furlong is the longest running distance by a horse in a street. And for example, the area, the acre is nothing but a land extent that is plowed by an ox per day. So it all depends on the energy level of the horse and the ox. If the horse was healthy and well energetic, he would have run even a little further. So we never know that. These are more random type of measurements, and which were broken down into tangible smaller dimensions, like furlong was broken down into yards and feet and inches. But Indian measurement system started from the invisible Paramanu. So these Paramanus are micro energy particles that were invisible. And the measurement system, there is a sloka which says that Paramanu Kramat Vriddham Manangulam Miti Smritam, meaning that measure which grows out of the Paramanu is called the measuring angula. So this Paramanu multiplied in terms of 8. 8 was considered as a sacred number in traditional Vastu. And it says that the Paramanus multiplied in 8 and became one cardust. What is a cardust? A cardust is when you look into a beam of light through a window, you can see small dust particles. That is the cardust. So 8 anus make a cardust. 8 cardust make an immi. Immi is a type of rice. It is called the Mattangai Pullarisi, which was grown in Kumari continent. And 8 immi is equal to 1 ellu. Ellu is a sesame seed. 8 ellu makes 1 nellu is a unhusked paddy grain. And 8 nell makes 1 viral. So this visual form, the space units that are arrived from the Paramanu was used in the construction of the temples and buildings and all other structures, built forms. So 1 hasta is equal to 2 feet 9 inches of British unit that is equal to 2 feet 9 inch British unit. And 1 viral is 1 3 by 8 inches. 24 viral make 1 hasta. I have placed this human form here because we say that Yenjan Udambukku Sirase Pradana means you have this jan, right, which you use with this hand. So 8 times the face length makes the entire length of the human body. Similarly, we also say that Erumbum Tan Kayal Et Jan. So this 8 has been a very sacred number, and that is why the vibration, the multiplication in terms of 8 was considered very important in our measurement system. If you take, for example, the time unit, which is a representation of oral forms, we have this music where the Adi Talam is also of 8 beats. We have Sa, Re, Ga, Ma, Kha, Da, Ni, Sa. So that is also in terms of 8. So such a deep measurement system was being used in our ancient culture, which is not known by today's people at all. It's a forgotten measurement system. So the measuring scale was called Murakol, and it is 24 angulas. You can see 8 Nell put together in this order to form one viral unit. There were 24 units. One hasta, one vitasti was half of it. Talam was quarter of it. And in this, you can see the blown up version of one viral. And here you can see 1/8 is equal to 4.3 mm. I have given the British and metric units of the viral unit. So the Nell size of those days were 4.36 mm. But today, if you measure and see, it will be hardly 2 to 2.5 mm. So different types of measurement scales were used in the earlier temples. So the basic measurement scale was the Kishku Hasta, which was of 24 viral unit, 2 feet 9 inches, that is found in Tanjavur Brihadishwara temple. And then we have the other divisions also, which was acceptable by the Shastras. And whatever viral unit was taken, it was divided into 24 units and then applied in the temple designs. Here you can see the stone basement with the markings of the scale measurement. The reference of Murakol is found in Silapadigaram. You all know about Silapadigaram, which is one of the Sangam literature found from the third Sangam. And it is a story about a merchant, Kovalan, Kannagi, his wife, and Madhaviya dancer. Nooleri Marabin Arangam Alakkum. This dancer was supposed to perform on a stage, and the author has described the stage width, stage dimensions. So Nooleri Marabin Arangam Alikkum. The stage was designed as per the Shastras. Kol Alavu 24. 24 viral is 1 hasta, 7 kol, 7 kol wide and 8 kol length, and the height from the base was 2 feet 9 inches. And Narkol Aga, the height of the ceiling was 4 kol, which is equal to 11 feet. There were 2 entries. So such references are found from the Shastra. So we cannot say that this type of system never existed. So coming to this slide, where how do you make use of this measurement? What is the role of the measurement in Vastu, and why is it sacred? So we all know that all the buildings, ancient buildings, are oriented towards cardinal directions. Why were they oriented towards cardinal directions is a very big question. Today, I see that the students in architecture, they don't even put a north point in the drawings, which is very unfortunate. And here you can see that there are 4 spaces: cosmic space, earthly space, built space, and inner space. So these 4 spaces, how do you bring a resonance or a harmony between these 4 spaces is what is the essence of Sthapatya Veda. And there is another major concept of Ayadi, which is itself called as Ayadi Rahasya. Rahasya is secret. People think that it is a secret that nobody should know, but this is a secret or the primary technique which was used in creating a harmony between the built space and the users. So how it is done, it is a secret. It will remain a secret. I will tell next time when I get a chance. So Yonihi Damnam Pranaha. Yoni or the direction lines are the lifelines of buildings. So next time, students, if there are any architect students here, please do not forget to put your north point. So coming over to our projects, I think I'm not being rushed through, but it's a residence from Charlotte, North Carolina, Manta's residence. It's a contoured site with a northeast slope. Here you can see the plan on the grid with the central Brahmastan. And we do a site rectification by staggered method. Sometimes we do this, sometimes we have a bigger square or rectangle. to correct irregular plot size. And this was the elevation that was given by us, the bottom left, but the county rules were against it, and they had their own. See, in US, they've tried to retain the identity of their place by retaining the building structures. But here in India, we don't have any identity at all for the current situation. Everything is whatever people feel like doing, they keep doing here. So because of that, the elevation was changed by the local architect, and this is the final residence that you see here. And here we can see the residence of Mr. Suresh, it's Jux Villa at ECR, Chennai. The design was done by us, and the construction and execution was done by Design Cube Architects, Chennai. So that is the floor plan with a central courtyard. It's around 14,000 square feet residence with a swimming pool, north-facing house, living hall, dining overlooking the swimming pool. That's a section of the, you can see the courtyard in the center. This is a picture that shows the link between the courtyard and the living hall seen from the dining. This is an upcoming project, 108-acre project in, it's a health resort, Ayurvedic center at proposed in the outskirts of Hyderabad. We have a temple, patient's residence, hospital block, and several blocks. This is the welcome center. That's a dining, central dining. And our temple projects. Finally, I would like to add that the authenticity of this ancient knowledge is slowly getting lost, and revival and sustenance of this knowledge is in our hands. So the younger generation have to develop an interest in studying this ancient knowledge and trying to apply it in their designs. So ultimately, the aim is not to let the glory of Indian heritage and culture that is anchored in her architecture to be lost forever. With the blessings of our dear Guru, Dr. V. Ganapati Sthapati, my husband, Santana Krishnan Sthapati, and myself will continue to propagate this ancient wisdom along with our American friends, Dr. Jesse Massey and architect Michael Borden. Thank you.